Everybody, it's Will Kern from Endless Entertainment, and it's time for another edition, another episode of Hashtag Event Icons. I am your host and so excited to be here. I have Laura Lopez joining me on the sidelines here to field your questions and chat with you over in the chat. We're so excited to be here. And before we really jump in and find out about our amazing guests that we have today, please take 2 seconds, help share hashtag event icons on Twitter and Facebook, LinkedIn, and start using the hashtag event icons to start the chat going. We want to hear your feedback. We want to hear what you're liking, the quotes. We want to see what you're liking out there. And tell them your friends to tune in. All they have to do is go to event-icons.com and they can tune in right away and enjoy the show. The more people we get in here, the better the conversation goes. Also, remember, this ain't no boring podcast. We're here to field your questions, the audience. So throughout the show, over on the right-hand side, use the questions pane so then that way you can ask us questions, field your comments. Feel free to go in there. This is about interactivity. This is not just about me asking questions of our amazing guests. This is about you, the audience, being able to get involved and get chatting for sure. So, without any further delay, well, actually, first, before we even introduce our amazing guests, I want to show a quick video. Today we're talking shit event planners say, or meeting planners say, and if you've never seen the video on YouTube, I figured this would be a good time to show it so you guys can get kind of the idea of what are we talking about today. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video for you guys, and I hope you enjoy.
That is not in my budget.
I do not have the budget for that.
Let me check. Nope, not in the budget.
Is that comped?
Will that be comped?
Don't you all understand what comp means?
Where's my budget binder?
What's the ROI on that?
That is not what your CPB said.
Who's the MOD?
What about F&B?
Get me the CSM.
They should be on IPO.
What's the ADR? Did you get my BEO?
I need your RFP.
I'm going to have to run that by my committee.
I'm going to have to run this by my committee.
You know, we're working with the committee.
Thank you.
What time do you have?
How are we doing on time? What time do you have? Hold on. Synchronize.
What time do you have?
Is he in the green room?
Is it too hot in here?
Is it hot in here? It's hot in here.
No, did you see him go in the, did you? Janet.
I think it's kind of cold in here.
Can we put wrap up in this downstage monitor?
Where are the interns?
Hold on. Janet.
Yeah, put wrap up twice in the downstage monitor and flash it.
Has anyone seen the caterer?
Janet.
Can we put shut up now in the downstage monitor?
Has anybody seen the tech guy?
All right, let's take his mic out and bring up the house music just like at the Oscars.
I know Janet's got it. Hold on, just one second. She's taking Janet!
Okay, it's down the hall to the right, just past the elevators.
I gave it to her already.
Anyone have any Tylenol?
Can you hold this?
He'd be on that stage. He wouldn't know what to do. He'd just be out there like a fish right out of water.
He stopped talking. Oh, go video.
He wouldn't know how to swim, and he'd look like a fish.
Oh, my feet are killing me.
Has anyone seen my flats?
I haven't eaten all day.
Do not open the doors.
We are not ready for doors. We are not ready to open those doors.
Please work.
Everyone can't wait. I'm excited to hear what you're going to say, and I wrote the script.
It didn't look like this on the site visit.
When this is all over, drinks on me, I promise. Drinks on me. When this is all over, we'll have some drinks.
All right. Awesome. So I'm so excited for this week's conversation. In the house, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Kevin White. For those who have not met Kevin or talked to Kevin before, Kevin is brilliant. Last week, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? He actually presented at Control-Alt-Delete, so if you haven't gotten a chance, it's actually available online for you guys to watch anytime. Just search Control-Alt-Delete and on Twitter, and feel free to watch the recording because Kevin talked a lot about how we're going to reset this events industry, and we knew we had to get him on the show for this week's episode. And one of the things that's really great about Kevin is actually that he's a planner himself. So you might be thinking that this is just going to be about a bunch of suppliers ranting about what event planners say. Nope. We got the man, the myth, the legend, Kevin White. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here, and it's true. I do say a lot of shit, So it's fun to talk about it.
Awesome. And hey, by the way, I heard that your family origins, that your name somehow rhymed with orange. Can you tell the story behind that at all?
It involves something that my family did in New York City. And there's a saying that there's not a single word that rhymes with gorange. I mean orange. But we are related to a very famous man in New York history, which actually has to deal with Cleopatra's Needle that sits behind the Metropolitan Museum of Art. That man's name was Admiral Gorringe, and his family and our family are connected in a unique way to New York history. But if anyone ever says to you there's no word that rhymes with orange, you can just simply correct them on that.
Awesome. I'm so happy because now I'm going to rock at every single trivia game when someone says, all right, words that rhyme with orange, and I'm ready to go. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us again, Kevin. All right. And you guys have seen this guy before. He was actually on the show 2 weeks ago actually talking about Control-Alt-Delete, and he's one of the minds and the brilliant minds behind the event. And we knew that after we had him on the show and we worked with Aaron on Control-Alt-Delete and basically became the MC for the entire event, I knew I had to get him on the show to have this topic and talk about shit event planners say. And similar to Kevin, Aaron's actually a designer with events and also does a little bit of event planning as well. And I'm sure he'll jump into a little bit about what he's doing these days. But I knew he was the perfect person to come on here because he has absolutely no filter and he always will say how it is. So I'm so happy to have him back, Mr. Aaron Kaufman. Thank you for joining us.
Happy to be talking shit with you, for sure.
I think it's one of the few times we can actually say we're going to be talking shit, and it's totally okay in context.
Cool. Let's do it.
Awesome. So the first question I have that we always start the show off with is what got you into the events industry and what got you to the point you are now? So, Kevin, why don't you kick it off for us?
Goodness, I fell ass backwards into the event industry. I had no plans or designs on it whatsoever. I think technically the first event I ever planned was my parents' 25th wedding anniversary. It was a surprise party. I planned it from a couple of hundred miles away from where it actually happened remotely. But I had no intentions. I didn't even know there was an event industry. You just kind of did it. I said, okay. And then magically I got into it by, I was in film school and studying to go to law school and decided I had zero desire to be in law. I loved telling stories through film. And then my mother at one point said, you'd be really great at events. And my aunt met somebody who turned out to be my first boss. And he's like, why don't you come see what we do? And it took a while. It took about 5 months after I gave my resume in for him to even call me back. And within 2 months after that, was producing my first events. But I think it really, the reason why you get into something like this is to tell somebody's or some organization's story. That there's a message that needs to get out. And I think all of us at heart as event planners should be great storytellers. That's the essence of live events. And so 22 years later, still doing it. A few moves, Jersey, New York, and now Boston. So it's just been a great ride. And I think the ability to do it throughout different markets has everything to do with my involvement in ILEA from a very young age. The connections made allow you to just transplant yourself globally anywhere you want. So it's been a great ride.
We're definitely going to have to do a conversation on ILEA and do like a panel on just ILEA because I'm in ILEA and I'm the president of my chapter. You're involved in ILEA, and then perfect transition over to Aaron. Aaron's very heavily involved in ILEA as well. So, Aaron, why don't you tell us a little bit about what got you into the events industry once again, and what got you to the point you are now?
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, it's not quite as good a story, I don't think, as Kevin. But before I even start, I want to wish a happy birthday to this guy who happens to be on my left. That guy right there. Yesterday was his birthday. Yesterday was his birthday. So
yesterday. Oh my gosh.
Constantly getting older. Slow it down.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So I mean, my map towards here really began when I was young. I loved to perform, right, and so that was the thing that kind of got me hooked onto being in front of people and live people, and I ultimately went through the process of working for, as an MC, both doing video shows and large scale functions and the occasional bar mitzvah here and there. And then I moved into the club scene a little bit, so I was kind of that really weird guy on the microphone, pouring tequila shots and doing all that kind of fun stuff. And then basically for me it was a situation where I got involved with a company that was struggling, to say the least, and they couldn't figure out how to leverage opportunities where they were performing to thousands upon thousands of high school kids. And high schools at the time were allowed to bring in dance parties and dance shows, and so we had designed a really cool show for them, but as the show went all over the place and hours away from home, they couldn't figure out how to leverage that and turn it into a profitable business. And so at the age of 21, I guess I was, they kind of said to me, hey, in order for this company to keep going into the following year, we need a plan. And I decided, knowing nothing really, to kind of leverage the business into a sponsorship plan. And that company, when it had the opportunity to sit in front of big corporates, and say, hey, I can bring you in front of, thousands upon thousands of high school kids, and I can avoid the laws that don't allow you to advertise in high schools. Yes.
Awesome.
Law breaking back then. So we did $1 million worth of sponsorship in the first year. And that kind of got me going into learning about, events and corporate events. And once I left there, it was really kind of just moving through and learning the trade and learning the skills and learning the industry and taking time to educate myself, even to today, on business and the art of business in this industry, which is far more interesting than many others, and that's what gets me here today. So
Awesome. So cool. Well, I'm really excited to have you guys both here because you guys are definitely icons of the events industry who are shaping and shaking things up for sure. So really excited to have you guys here. So on to the topic of today of shit event planners say, or event meetings planners say. Put whatever title you want to put in there, right? I mean, maybe that's something that they all say as well. But planners love to talk, obviously, to one another, right? We're on social media, we're in Slack channels together, we're always constantly talking with each other. Well, you guys have obviously heard a ton of stuff from other event planners as well. What do you guys think is a couple of the things you hear event planners complain about all the time? Feel free to let your rant voice go crazy on this one. Aaron, you're nodding your head. You look really eager. What's something you hear planners complain about a lot?
For me, I think one of the things that I look at with planners as a whole, first of all, is it's not as much a complaint so much vocally, but I find that they're just always complaining about the industry that they work in general, right? And I find that with planners and I don't like the term planner. I'd prefer manager or producer or a better name that sounds more professional and distinguished. But that said, they're just always complaining about this person. I think that this person's trying to fuck me here, or I think this person's trying to screw me over here, or whatever else. And there's always something that they feel, isn't right for them. And oftentimes, my response, and I travel around a lot and speak, and my response is often, well, just ask to see documentation, or ask them what the right answer is. Don't because that's what businesses do. And I think overall, as an industry, we need to be focused on building businesses. And so I think those are the common complaints, right? This person doesn't like me, or this person's getting this from this venue, or this person this, or this person that. Don't worry about this person, right? Worry about yourself. Go do the best business you can, and I think those complaints start to go away a little bit.
So do you think it's a lot of times that people are so focused outward rather than like focusing in on their own thing? They're always worried about what other people are doing and saying and thinking?
I mean, to a degree, I think this industry is you know, a lot of people are friends, and when we all get together, and I'm sure Kevin would attest to that, you know, whether it's conferences or otherwise, we have a great time, and we all like to talk and, you know, have a drink or two and hang out and, you know, learn some things. And, you know, I think ultimately, though, you can find a lot of people who are having conversations about, you know, their businesses and the industry at whole and stuff. And I think if we all just took a step back and stopped complaining about each other, and started looking into putting in, you know, a series of basic rules or a series of basic ideas and principles with which we can operate, I think most of those complaints that we sit and worry about so much go away, or at least become limited, and the people who can't adhere to some of those policies, you know, those would be the people who would be outed very quickly.
Interesting. Very interesting. Kevin, what are some things that you hear people complain about? Do you agree with what Aaron's saying?
Well, I think so. I think that event people are, I don't want to use the word emotive, but they wear their emotions on their sleeves. Because we're in a business that deals in both, you know, for the most part, outward communication, we're very good at projecting out. And so, you know, the human condition of survival, especially in a, you know, a field that you can probably, in most markets, probably in some of the bigger ones you can't, but you can count your competitors on your fingers.
Mm-hmm.
So people know everybody, and it does become a small thing. And so when you're a small business, everything feels like it's being taken to heart to a degree. I think also because we are in the creative world, we lack sometimes. There are some very good business people, but there's also a lot of small businesses where the leadership is from the creative minds and the people whose passion drives things, as opposed to how do we run a business. And so you're going to lose the quality of reaction. You know, some people might say that some of the leaders currently running for high office in America don't have the temerity to react well. You know, how they're going to. And so I think that when you place that in the same thing as an industry, sometimes that can happen a lot. What I always find amazing is on-site. So when planners are talking, I find a very common reaction, and that is to be constantly complaining about people. So you have a high-pressure situation because it's got to happen. It's got to launch. It's going to go. The doors open, and off you go. And in that process, you're dealing with people. And you're dealing with a product that is a personal product. It is moving an audience. So it's people trying to create an effect with people. And yet the complaints that I see, or the issues that I see a lot of times, are about how somebody's behaving and or a lack of calmness about a situation. There's the immediate tension. And I find it so self-defeating because, you know, to use a phrase from a movie, a recent movie, you know, will it help? Is that going to help at all? And the worst thing you can do, it's kind of like if you've ever been on a submarine, the last thing you want to do is create an issue on a submarine. There's no escape. A live event's the same thing. You have no ability to escape from the live event. You can't call timeout because it's happening. The worst thing you could do is light a fire within an event. You can't. So why are you creating a potential blow up from the team that has to deliver this by talking and creating issues and letting it rule your own thoughts? You know, if you ever want to win an argument, get somebody off their game, distract them by having them focus on something entirely different. And I think that that's what happens with our teams. Our very human teams get distracted because people complain about the human side of it, and they just don't lock down and focus and just let's get to finish. People take things personally, and it's ludicrous.
Interesting. I like the analogy with the submarine, and I think that's probably one of the greatest thoughts too, because like you said, it's one of those things that there's a countdown. There's no, like there's only one way this is going to happen, and it can't stop. Whereas like, you know, if something doesn't work well on an assembly line, you can hit the stop button and pause, figure out what's wrong, improve, right? An event, you hit stop, all the attendees are going to look at you and be like, what's going on? So I love that analogy. Thank you so much. So to go into a little bit more, I guess, lighter conversation is, what do you think the craziest thing you've ever heard an event planner say or request? Or maybe even we flip this a little bit too, like, but we'll follow it up with maybe something a supplier has said as well. But what's the craziest thing you ever heard a planner request? Maybe it's something to do with their event or something. I don't know. Aaron, you again, you sound crazy. Go ahead.
Pretty sure you just told me to elaborate on that. I think you got a little choppy. Okay, so listen. I mean, I've heard any number of strange things. I've had. I've seen planners threaten to not open the doors because they weren't happy with things and all of the things that I hear essentially don't really do anything except harm or make the situation worse. I've heard planners yell at. Fortunately, it wasn't me, but another supplier working on a job that as the doors are opening and guests are coming in, that they don't intend to pay that supplier.
Oh.
It was a tough day and a large event, and I am listening, standing behind an AV team of people who are all producing an event, and
It wasn't endless, right? Let's clarify.
It wasn't endless. And she's yelling at the team, you're not getting paid for. You're not going to get paid. I'm going to make sure the client knows. Guests are pouring in the room. Things are happening. And I really think it's over the lack of a pre-programmed ballyhoo or whatever else. And so, I think honestly that planners, kind of like Kevin said, they react from the hip, right? And I think there's a lot of emotion, and they feel very personal about the things that they're doing. And I think there needs to be more thinking sometimes. But I've heard all sorts of batshit crazy people doing just insane things from any perspective. And at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to take a step back and go, is this something that A, has affected the event drastically, and B, and sometimes I'll even take a step back with my team and we'll recognize that, okay, something might not have gone absolutely perfect, and I think that's the nuances of live events, but has it impacted the client, right? Is the client going to go, oh, well, that last light didn't go at 45 degrees, it only went to 30 degrees, and so, I'm pissed. Right? That's not going to have an impact, right? So I think that there are things that once they become out of your control, I've seen planners get really pissed that they felt that a GOBA wasn't fully 100% focused. Well, it looked good to me, I don't know. So, but they're not happy with it because, maybe they're not wearing their glasses. And so I think it's, I think it's just sometimes just crazy, crazy things. And planners, if you want to use that term, I think one of the things they do is they always are, when they're emotional, they're expecting perfection because they're so concerned that a client's going to say, this wasn't perfect. But most of the time, clients don't know anything, and it's just like a Broadway show or a live show or anything else. And the show goes on and shit happens, and sometimes, unless you've seen a show 10 times and you've memorized all the words and everything, I guarantee you, every time a live show happens, theater or otherwise, somebody fucks something up. Guaranteed.
That's very true. That's very true. I like the point that you made about that most of the time they threaten to do something and it just makes things worse. And I think that causes, a lot of people to say and reflect and say, what I'm about to do, is it's going to actually make this situation better or is it going to make it worse? So I love that you brought that up. Kevin, what's the craziest thing you've ever heard a planner say?
Sometimes you have so many stories you can't remember any of the stories, but I'm gonna
They all flow together and you think it's one client,
I'm
right?
gonna attempt to give a quick rundown of. I'm gonna go client, vendor, guest. So we'll start with guest. There was an event we're doing Ellis Island, a couple of thousand people. They had all flown in international, so that some of them were very tired and jet lagged. Welcome event, cocktail reception, 2 ferries, an early one to get people who really needed to go to sleep off the island and back, and then a much bigger ferry at the end of the night. So instead of at 1 hour into the event, at 2.5 hours into the event, pile on the ferry. The last half hour is pull into the harbor and see a giant fireworks show over New York Harbor. Gorgeous.
Oh, awesome.
A guest, I mean, we were all there. Nobody really knew who the guy was. Walked up to the mic and made an announcement to the entire group that the ferry is leaving in 10 minutes. So if everybody's on the mic, and this was ferry number 1. So I'm going to push it out to about 80% of the event cleared out. And we still had an hour and a half more. You know, we had performers flown in. Like,
oh my God.
They were performing to 80 people. And the worst of it is the client paid for a Grucci fireworks show. So they were trying to hold the boat. They were trying to hold the boat for almost 45 minutes with people on it in the harbor, and you know, fire permit wasn't going to let it go early. It had to go at a certain time. Crazy. So we were all like, how does it get? How do we even let that happen? And who was this guest? We were still wondering who was this guest. I've heard a lot of crazy stuff from vendors. The one thing I remember was a talent, we'll call it manager, a group, a band with performers, but really energetic band was on stage. And the woman who came to help manage them, she felt that she was just as much a success to the show as anybody else, even though she was the manager. And at one point she's in the wings and she's kind of dancing, and I'm up there in the wings watching, seeing how it's going. And she's just like, oh my God, I feel it. I need to be out there. And she starts doing a dance and starts to walk. And I'm like, okay, you're not even part of the show. For those of you who may know, this is not Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. We don't need a random dancer on stage with a band. And I actually grabbed her by the back of her pants and yanked her back. And I'm like, no, this is not your show. She felt the beat. She felt the rhythm. And the final thing was from a client who was a planner. So this is actually a planner who was a client of ours at the time, actually a competitor. We bid on a giant event, 1,000 people. She underbid us, and she won the business, and then came back to us and said, I can't actually produce this. Will you be on site to call and produce the show? It was a 1,000-person outdoor sit-down dinner. And day one did not go well, but we were expecting, with them as the executive producers, to give us things like a production schedule, a technical diagram, a load-in schedule. If we're the day of people, you have to hand us the information for day of. And the end client, at the end of day one of a 2-day load-in, came up to us and he read us he said, I need you and I need you, and called us over, and the two of us sat there and he read us the riot act and couldn't believe it, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just going, all I can say is my hands are tied. She's the producer. I need info. But he looked to me because I was the one who needed to call the show. He walks away. She kind of collects herself, takes a few minutes. End of the night, half hour later, she comes walking back to me and she says, Kevin, I need you to go home tonight, and I need you to think about the type of person you need to be tomorrow to make this event a success. And that was the closest I ever came to striking a woman in my life. She's insane. She's lost it. But these things happen, and everybody's impression of what, because she had 5 other things throughout the city she was doing. She was so over her head, and yet was feeling the stress, and there was nothing I could do about it. But she put it all. She was hoping that pep talk would work.
It just may work.
She wanted, but in the end, I think it was a success. I think it was a relatively successful event. So those are some crazy things that I've heard people say on site in the throes.
Oh my gosh, talk about like literally things that make things worse. And I gotta admit, the fairy story is like one of the best I've ever heard. And the fact that you still have no idea who this guy is, he's like ominous. He's that guy
They
at the
may
event that you don't
The
know.
client may have identified somewhere in the guest list who it was, but no one said what's Bob saying. Everyone just they did announcements and then they all walked away and then they turned to hear this guy and everyone's like, oh, maybe he said, so I found a pair of glasses or something. No one had any idea. And he just said, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, and we're all like, who's that? And then he just threw out, the ferry's going to leave in 10 minutes. And it was a rush to the door. We couldn't get to the microphone fast enough to say, no, that's not correct. And people were just out.
Oh my gosh. So crazy. So prepare yourselves. Make sure the microphone is always muted when your programming is done. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we've gone through kind of the craziest shit we've ever heard, and then after this question, I'm gonna jump into a couple audience questions that we're starting to get because it is buzzing right now. Why do planners say this crazy stuff, right? Why is it stress? Is it because, you can? Is it because we're all mentally just messed up? Yeah, Kevin.
I
Why
know.
why is this happening?
I think 9 times out of 10, somebody puts it in their head. I think there is a pressure from a higher up, from a guest, from somebody they're trying to, I don't want to say impress, but I think that um, there are very few times where planners are I want to say in charge, make the final call. There's very few times where somebody says, I'm handing this over to you. And I think that's actually one of the issues in our industry is that people still, people in other departments don't value how difficult it is, either mid-event or in part of an event or in designing an event or coming up on the deadlines of an event, that to change something or to make something happen, they just say, like, do it. And they think, okay, doable and easy to do. And I think that there is a loss. We in general have been fighting a reputation of it's just a checklist, just add it to your checklist and get it done, without realizing anything about things like impact. And so because of that, everybody feels if I just go to the planner, I can just request whatever I want. And because a lot of times, and I do want to stop using the word planner, we've been saying it a lot, but because producers or strategists or designers, managers, because we're not given full reign, so to speak, to say it's now locked in, we're now moving forward with it, and this is what we're doing. You have to throw out the what if we go for this, or what if this happens, or you have to get into panic mode because we can't do that, but they just asked for it. Bah! I don't even know the ramifications. I don't know all of the ramifications, and I have no time to do it, and now I've got to attempt to do it. I don't even know where to begin, or I have no idea how this will impact what we're doing. But the harder part is I don't want to say no to, or even worse, I can't say no. So I think there's a lot of times where stuff comes out where somebody's putting undue pressure. And planners are always in the middle of the pressure. I always look at planners as the axle in a wheel. All the spokes go through the planner, and so all pressures from everywhere. They vendors, down to vendors, back up from vendors, down from departments, back up from departments, down to guests, back up from guests. Everywhere is pressure, and so I think that comes out a lot. I think that's where it finds it. One of the sources of where it finds its way.
The pressure.
I think
Awesome.
Yeah.
we also
Go
need
ahead.
to be careful that, as an industry and as we grow, I think, to Kevin's point, we need to start learning to say no, right? Because sometimes, and every time I'm out and doing something, it's always, well, how do we do that? Simple, no, right? We are not, magicians, and we are not, well, some of us might be magician, planner, whatever, but we are not, we we have, I think there's a couple of things. So we have the ability to do really cool things, and I think people look at producers and managers and whatever else and think these are the people that are running the show. But with that respect also has to come the ability to be able to say, I hear what you're saying, Mr. Client, or whatever else, but at this point in the game, it would be a bigger distraction or cause a bigger problem if we attempted to do that. So I think that's number one. We have to know that clients who are hiring us have enough respect for us that when we say no, they're going to take that as a legitimate, as an understanding. I think one of the other, the other problem in that area is that, with respect to managers and producers, a lot of them just don't have what I would consider to be adequate knowledge base, right? So I'm generalizing, of course, but I think when the client or the department or whatever else is coming to them, I think people in a planning position are accustomed to two things. Either here's how we did the event last week, last month, last year, and so this is our formula, right? And so anything off the formula causes stress. But I also think that planners, producers, and managers are used to having to pick up the phone for answers because they may not be as well versed in the multiple disciplines that they need to be in order to be able to give an answer. And so efficiency and everything else goes out the window. And so something happens and they go, shit, I don't know. And there's nobody to pick up the phone, right, when you have your client standing in front of you or whatever else. So I think, again, it comes back to, being taken seriously, being taken legitimately as a business and as a professional. And also on the flip side of that, when you're going to win jobs and being transparent with clients in terms of the service that you provide and the quality of service and things like that, it's about letting them know that you're working with partners and various other things so that they don't think that it's you specifically that did this, and this. You didn't cook the chicken, lay the dance floor, put up the lighting, build the flowers. You didn't do all of that with your own hands. So I think it's important for clients to understand that you have a process too, and there are suppliers and other people, so you can't just make magic happen out of thin air.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think, to add to that, I think one of the issues that does occur often is, and there's a great saying about it, that the biggest issue with communication is the assumption that it happened, right? Too many times, both pre and on site, people who are involved in the process aren't asking enough questions. They're being relays. So when somebody says the vice president wants you to do this, and an entire team, like let's say a tech team or a design team, is like, wow, that doesn't make any sense. Tell them no. And it's like, I'm not telling them no. It's like, well, if we do it, it's going to have to be da 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 da. Here are the costs. Here's what's going to happen. You're never going to be able. We're going to have to pull two people up. And the problem with that communication is the simple relay of, well, the vice president wants this to happen, and you only say this to happen, and there's no asking of, can you tell me why you think that needs to happen? Mm-hmm. And our expertise as producers and as strategists needs to be in asking those questions. Can you just tell me why that needs to happen? Because more times than not, our value on site needs to be, I'm going to find you a solution, not I'm going to accomplish what you asked me to do. Because sometimes the ask is the wrong thing. Sometimes moving the stage, why? Because he thinks people aren't close enough. Oh, if you need people to feel close enough, we'll do X, and we can solve it in an entirely different way, potentially a better way. But a lot of times what we're getting are requests about things that non-event people feel are the solution, and they have no idea. And so a vice president or a guest or somebody makes a request, and you're like, yeah, but we don't relay enough information to each other on site or even pre. And sometimes it's because we're not asking the right questions or we're not demanding enough information from people.
Or we just don't know the questions to ask.
So, sometimes, yes. Sometimes that is the case. And so I think all around, again, our value needs to be that. It needs to be, are you finding solutions as to why change is happening? And if you can provide great responses and great solutions that don't put the event at risk and accomplish what needs to be accomplished, That's the best of all worlds. So if you can know what the solutions are and know how to ask and get to it and then provide that solution, you can probably cut out 40%, 50% of the random stuff that creates angst or change or issues, especially on site. And I think most of our angst and craziness is from change. I think that's 100%.
Yep.
Where the issues come from. Is everyone gets stressed because it's live, baby. Don't change anything. It's live.
We're going live. I love that quote, by the way. The biggest mistake with communication is assuming that it already happened, right? I love that completely because, I mean, like, especially in like a remote working culture and us, a lot of times doing things over a phone is that, yeah, you're assuming things are happening. And I love it. Love it. That's going to like be my new like poster quote. So thank you. And you guys transitioned, I think, perfectly into some of our audience questions that we're starting to get. So we'll start with one of the audience questions that comes from our
people watching us.
Yeah, people are watching us right now live
Oh,
and asking questions too. So the question is from Alex. Alex is asking, since most people in the industry, like similar to ourselves, we get kind of thrown into the industry. We weren't expecting to become event planners or AV technicians, whatever it may be. Since we all get kind of thrown in the industry and we aren't really there, go to college to become what we became, right? And we aren't educated traditionally. Does this impact the way we work, and does that also create insecurities that don't exist in other pieces of industries and places of works and fields of work? What are your thoughts, Kevin? Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to say, I'll happily let Kevin answer, but I think that we make the mistake as an industry of thinking just because you have the title of planner, producer, manager, AV, whatever else, we seem to forget that in every industry, everywhere around the world, there are people who are good at what they do. There are people who are great at what they do. There are people who are, cream rises to the top. And there are different levels to which we can, you have expectations of yourself. So some people will own businesses. Some people always work for businesses, right? And I think that one of the things in our industry is that, when you talk about, not school and education and stuff like that. I think that everyone kind of comes out, and I interview a ton of people, and I say to them, oh, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years? And I tell you that the first way to get excluded from a job is when someone answers me, well, I see myself running my own firm. Everybody, everywhere, that's the big answer, because who's stopping you, right? What does it require? Right, and everyone coming out of schools, and Kevin, I'm sure you speak at a ton of schools, and you speak to a ton of groups, and I think one of the things that happens is everyone gets told, you could have your own business, right? You could have an event planning business. There's courses out there for $20, like how to open your own event planning business, right? And so I think we, as an industry, need to recognize that there are different levels of professional, right? Designations aside and all of those things aside, because there are tons of options for designation. I, as well as Kevin, am a CSEP, and I'm proud of that designation, and I think it's amazing, and I recommend everyone to do it. But I think whether you're a CSEP, a CMP, whatever else is available out there, I think that we need to understand as an industry that some people inherently will just be better than others, and that's okay. And some people should work for others. And, it's just the way it is in every industry, everywhere. People go from being junior to senior to partner or whatever else. And I think we don't accept that as an industry because we're social and we're emotional, and we all want to be, nobody wants to put each other down, and nobody wants to be, oh, I'm better than you are. But that's part of business and competition and industry. And I think we need to accept that some people will always be better than others.
Yeah, and I think that Aaron's right. To this world, it is a low barrier to entry. Nobody wakes up one day and says, I'm going to open up an iron smelting plant. You got to be in manufacturing for a couple of decades and know your chops before you can get in that. But people could literally go, I own an event planning firm, or I'm a producer. So there is a low barrier to entry. So I think that is. I agree with Alex. I think that is the case. One of the things that we need to do, though, is it's one of two things. We either become like an industry where it's a high barrier. I know plenty of useless lawyers. I know plenty of useless MBAs, but they have been through process. And people go, well, they've at least been through that process, and we have no idea what process is. So we either raise the barrier to get in, or as an industry, we start I don't want to say enforcing, but we start universally talking in the same way and teaching the value of what it is. So if the whole notion of fake it till you make it, hey, God bless, you got to start on day one somewhere, and if it's on your own, okay. I would rather teach that person what to say to show value, even if they don't 100% get or know how to get it all, for the good of the industry, for people who do, because the forefront's going to drive it. The back of the pack, so be it. But people will, to a degree, lump the front of the pack in with the back of the pack. It's just the way it works. And in our industry, because it's low barrier, people go, no, I don't want to run the risk of it being someone in the back of the pack. So that's the hard part. When you're amazing as an event company, you should never be noticed. But when you do get noticed are the complete and utter nightmares that happen because of lack of professionalism. So I would agree, and I think that there is a solution of the conversation that we need to have. How we call ourselves. What is the value proposition? We need to get off of to-do lists. You know why? Because there's an app for that. There's an app for to-do lists. And that people don't respect that. Getting it done is an important part, but that's not where respect is earned. It's understanding the value of an event and the impact it can have.
And I would also say that in this industry, it's so interesting because we often talk about, these types of things, but what we don't often talk about, and what goes relatively unnoticed, is the people who are still on the top of the industry, the people who are still doing the biggest events and working with the biggest budgets, those people have been running the industry and good businesses for 20, 30 years, and it is very hard when you get to a good solid level to advance to their level. It is very rare that I think that you find new businesses, new people, new companies ascend to the level that some of the companies that have been out there for 25 or 30 years are. And those people are, a lot of them are friends and great professionals and people I learn from and mentors. But they talk amongst themselves and say, we have good businesses and we don't want more competition up here, right? And I think we need to talk about that, and we need to say, hey, we need to be running good businesses and proper businesses and having conversations like this so that we can challenge for those top positions instead of just being okay with being event planners.
I love it. I love it. I think you guys answered another great question that we had, and which was in the audience, which was how do we, change the stigma of be considered an easy position? And I love what you guys said. Just really shaping the conversation is so awesome.
I'm gonna just say, with that, come on, man! Like this thing and this easy thing. Why is it easy? Because you get a phone call for a job and someone says, okay, well, I know you're $10,000, but someone agreed to do this job for $2,000, and 95% of the people in this industry go, well, shit, if someone else is going to do it, I'll do it for $19.95, right? Because they're so concerned about the next penny. That's why people think it's so easy, right? Because I think that people look at it, and look, everyone takes pride in this. We're the 5th most stressful job in America. Right, or whatever it is, the 4th most stressful, wherever we are this year, right?
Who even knows if that's true?
It's bullshit. But anyways, I think that people think it's easy because there's always someone willing to do it for cheaper, right? And nobody, I could hop on, build a new website. I could go to Kevin White's website. And, well, not with Kevin specifically, but I could go to anyone's website in the industry, let's say, and I could copy 95% of the verbiage. And the part I could leave out is, well, I've been doing this for 25 years, right? And I could say, I've been doing this for 1 year. But the rest of my website says I'm a premium person that works with worldwide brands and, has established marketing programs across the globe and live events and blah, blah, blah. And great. Now you're a planner, but yet you're still going to work, to take the cheapest price. So I think the thing about the stigma around planners and the job being easy is simply because most are willing to work for anything, right? And I think we need to stop that, and we need to say, this job isn't easy. Here are how many hours it takes, right? Here are some standardized rates and ideas, and people need to ask questions. And look, I'm happy to say I didn't know, I think a couple of years ago, what kind of rates people look at and stuff like that. And I'm sure Kevin will remember. I emailed Kevin and said, hey, I need some understanding as to what those things look like because I need to learn about this. And so I think people need to take that into account. It's not easy. And I'll tell a quick, I use a particular website in one of my presentations, and basically it says, we do design that cannot be duplicated. Our design elements are custom made for every project that we do, and we work with the best people in the industry to make sure that this is a one-of-a-kind event every time. And the first picture in their gallery is a picture of a single vase with a bud rose in it on a windowsill. Right?
Yeah, stock photo.
Right, it's a stock photo from someone's window, right? But yet they are the most original, unique, exciting, creative, custom firm you've ever seen, right? And that's nonsense. That's got to stop.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, we're getting towards the end of the show, so I want to kind of end out with some actionable advice, hopefully, for the audience. You guys are obviously been doing this stuff for a long time. You guys are experts and you're icons in the field. So I want to ask the one question, which is, if you guys could pick one tip to share with the audience and planners and producers and creatives and strategists for 2016 to make their events even more better. It doesn't have to be saying less shit or whatever it may be. What would be your one piece of advice for them? Kevin, you want to kick it off?
Sure. So we're in the midst of a giant conversation about the convergence of technology into the personal realm. Technology is so, I want to say, inexpensive and cheap. It's so accessible at this point that it influences and impacts everything we do almost every second of the day. If your events in some way, shape, or form aren't, I want to use the word mining, data is huge. Data is the new currency, whereas gold was at one point, and then energy became a commodity. Data is the next giant global changing commodity, and if you don't agree with me, then figure out why Facebook is so valuable. It's because of the data that they hold. And I think that all of you want to start thinking about, I'm not talking about like in a creepy 1984 way of getting into people's homes, but we were just having this conversation today about the simplicity of utilizing either apps or sensors to deliver something, to deliver a better product. One of the things we were having a brainstorming session today, and it was, if you could collect data in the beginning of something, so that by mid-event, even if it's a 2-hour event, so a half hour in, you've collected enough data by people on the way in the door that you would actually alter what you presented to them. So if you could make 5 presentations and say, based on what people say and react, we're actually going to alter the presentation to be dead on. I mean, that's simple, and that's not getting into too personal a thing. What does that have to do with a wedding? Well, what if you were to, everything was to play out afterwards into the best, most personal way possible, the product of the wedding for the family, instead of just, it's a video, it's a posting on Instagram. But what if you could get even, what if you could really make it truly personal in some way by the data you've collected? It's big. It's next. It's here. It's available. And if you're not thinking about it, you're losing out on an opportunity to perform what you do better. The more subtle you can do it, the better it is. Everything shouldn't feel like a survey. You shouldn't be sitting on an app filling stuff out. But the more subtle you can do it, I think the more effective and impactful your event could be.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. Aaron, what would be your
Yeah.
one piece of advice? One
So,
tip.
I mean, I agree with Kevin. Data is invaluable. But that said, I'll go a bit of a different route, and I will say invest in people as a business. I think so. I'm going to step out of the the event side for a thing in terms of just the event industry, but invest in people, because I think that as an industry we get really scared to admit that and I'll say it again, that we're businesses. And I think that, and I used this example with you, Will, before, where, an advertising company, right? If you had told an advertising company, okay, well, you're a print advertising company and now you can't work online, they'd be out of business, right? Or a marketing company, if you told them that they couldn't hire community managers and social media specialists because someone started a social media company, well, they'd be out of business too. So I think it's important for us as an industry to make sure that we have good people around our businesses who understand how businesses grow. One day, live event firms or companies are going to have someone that understands data, right? Because just like Kevin said, right, for me, if I'm running a show or Kevin's running a show, to me today that sounds like a daunting task. What Kevin says, it sounds awesome. Like I think it's brilliant, and it's probably not physically it's not harder, I think, than doing some other things, but I'm not a data guy, and so if I really wanted to understand data in my events, I'd have to have someone around me who understood that better. And so I think that as businesses, we have to be prepared to evolve in the market. We have to be prepared to, be smart about our partnerships, people we know, the people we talk to, the people we work with. And so I think that will help overall to kind of legitimize what we're doing, right? And I think it's okay for producers to work together and designers to work together and companies to work together to go after bids and win jobs and all sorts of things. So investing in people and partnerships and education and investing in businesses and growth, those things are super important, because no one wants to be independent forever, and we all need the opportunity to learn and grow from each other and grow our businesses at the same time.
Awesome. I love both of you guys' pieces of advice. So fantastic and so helpful. So we're going to end the show on one of my favorite pieces, which is sharing all of the cool resources that you guys have found, whether it's a book, a podcast you just found, or a cool website or an app, or whatever it may be that you guys want to share when it comes to resources. We've even had a scuba mask shared, so you guys got to top that one. But share any cool resources that you guys may have, and we're going to try to keep up along and post all of the resources in the chat, and then if you're watching the recording right now, they'll be all in the show links afterwards. So why don't we start off, Aaron, you've done this before, so I'm sure you've got some awesome resources lined up, even though you probably used all the last ones on the last show, but go ahead with any cool resources that you have that you want to share with the audience.
Yeah, so I think for me, my resources are a little bit more old school. Number one, get out to a local chapter meeting of whatever association tickles your fancy. I say get out to an ILEA meeting, obviously, but that said, amazing organizations and associations all over the place. Get out there and shake hands and kiss babies old school style, because I think that that's the best way to make relationships. I think your show, obviously, Will, is a newer resource for me, and I've gone back and watched some stuff, and I think content's awesome, and you have some great people, present company included. So, absolutely.
I'm going to watch this one over and over and over again.
I'm going to make my wife watch it all night tonight. Yeah.
What's also cool about our show is that you can watch it in 2 times speed, so you can watch it over and over again, twice their speed on chipmunk mode.
Amazing. Just what I need. ADHD and twice the speed. And I think number 3, I'm currently using or learning how to use tourism bureaus and CVBs and really interesting people. And again, all about building relationships. So while a lot of people are talking about online tools, and things like that, I'm actually taking a step back and trying to learn how to or relearn how to have good conversation and reach out with good people. And recently we've done a lot of cold calling and stuff like that, which I think is super interesting. So those are it's not a specific resource, but it's get out there and mine information in terms of people and places and things that you can take advantage of for your business.
Awesome. So good. I also like how you went like the old school route. So very fantastic in a very digital age that we are in today. All right, Kevin, hit us with your favorite resources, whatever they may be, event related or not.
I'm going to go even old schoolier. Read. So
what are you reading?
Okay. So if you are not an expert on humans in this industry, then you're failing. Our products are human products. We deal in audiences. Every event needs two things to show up and one thing to be crafted, and that is a venue, people, and then an agenda. If you don't understand people, then you're lost. And so, to me, I think that there are some great resources you can use that are not necessarily event related that will help you in this. One is the book Drive by Daniel Pink. This will help actually in business,
Yes.
but it tells you what makes humans want to do things, especially in the business realm, especially in the workplace, which is important to know and understand. I think it's great critical thinking, and it's an easy read and summarizes well. You can actually just read it for the big points. You can do a Cliff's Notes of it if you want.
And if you're too lazy to read, there's also an amazing illustrated TED Talk online as well that's high level points on it too. So one of my
The
favorites.
second thing I like to do is find inspiration outside of our event echo chamber, and I like things that teach you how to critically think. And so I find that magazines such as The Atlantic or magazines like Wired. Now, it might seem like, oh my God, those are such heady pieces, or I'm not into tech, so why do I need to learn about drones? Both of them not only are really good at critical thinking, but they really analyze human beings. They talk about them in a reference beyond, do you know how to get everybody up and dance, or how to sample a product? And so it refreshes your mind and reminds you of what you're trying to do without being in the, like I said, the event echo chamber of hearing the same stuff over and over and over again. And so you can draw inspiration on how to impact human beings from magazines like that.
Awesome. So good. I also love that you recommend, I think you're the first person to recommend magazines specifically, whereas we get a lot of blogs and a lot of books, obviously, but magazines are obviously a great resource as well. So thank you.
Right,
Awesome.
Not Us Weekly.
Us Weekly?
Not Us Weekly.
Not Us Weekly.
Shit.
It's one of Kevin's favorites. Aaron's like, unsubscribe. My last resource that I have to share with everyone is that I'll go back to the new school and talk about an app that I just recently picked up that has been saving me a ton of time. It's called Text Expander. And if you're not using Text Expander, basically you can create short codes. For example, when you type THX, it automatically fills in thank you with an exclamation point. You can customize this however you want. For example, I typed it when I do semicolon book 30, it puts in my 30-minute booking link for people to schedule on my calendar. Things like meeting replies. Anything that you're typing a lot of, even paragraph text, you can basically shortcut on here. So it helps you out a ton if you're doing the same stuff over and over again, same replies to emails over and over again, everything like that. So hopefully that saves you guys all a ton of time.
Will, will you confirm that that's called TEXT, Text Expander?
Yep.
Okay.
That's
Will you
correct.
also
Yeah,
you also confirm that it'll now write out "Oh my God" when I put in OMG into my text?
Yeah, you could do that as well. It's really, really cool. You can even use it to like script things on your computer. It's really, really cool and really inexpensive, so I highly recommend it. Imagine like autocorrect as well, so really, really cool. So that's all our resources, all of our tips, all of the shit event planner and that we have for today. I want to thank our amazing, amazing guests, Kevin, Aaron. Thank you guys so much for being on the show this week. You guys are so awesome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
That was awesome.
Awesome. And thank you to the audience for all tuning in today. You guys asked some phenomenal questions today. I'm just so excited you guys all here. We want you to definitely tune in next week. We are going to have an amazing lineup of more event icons for you to tune in. Be sure to share on social-icons.com. Check your email for the next link to tune in, and we look forward to seeing you guys all again here on #EventIcons. I hope you guys have an amazing evening, afternoon, day, wherever you are in the world, and we will see you guys all very soon. Thank you. Woo.